So I know I say this all the time, but we're about to look at what might be the most important chapter in the book. Remember, this is the Urantia book, a revelation by advanced celestial beings. Since a lot of this, if you see in the table of contents, is stuff that we really can't have any validation for, seven master spirits and so forth, unless you really attain a high level of spirituality and then are having these auto revelations. So somebody might discount the Urantia book as just being something that they really can't sink their teeth into because it's hard for them to be concerned with things like how are the angels governing themselves and how do we know that's not just hogwash, right? But then you get to these papers that we're looking at today, like The Reality of Religious Experience, 1137. This is Science and Religion. So when you see that they are making how they make these commentaries about what it's like to be a human being on this planet, having these experiences, um, these really super important topics. I mean, you could probably find about 100 YouTube channels debating this type of thing or podcasts or something like that. So you know this is something that really is not just some far off issue. So let's look at this science religion. Please like and subscribe. Thanks to everybody who's participating already. Now, if we look at this science and religion here, folks, then we understand. Let's just start. Science is sustained by reason, religion by faith. So you would think right off the rip that they are going to be opposing forces to each other, right? And they have been for many years. For instance, the religionists will think that the scientists planted dinosaur bones at the bottom of the La Brea tar pits to disprove the Bible. And that's an act of Satan. And there's people that literally believe that. Um, so, and rightfully so, when your church has been programming you to think for thousands of years for the purpose of gaining money from you, to control you, right? And that was why the Sanhedrin wanted Jesus to stop preaching, because Jesus was upsetting their pocketbooks. He was saying, no, you don't need to pay this church. What are you guys doing? I mean, spirituality is all around you. It's within you. So but then now the scientists, on the other hand, are saying, no, there's no such possible way that a magical, mythical wizard man in the sky put life on this planet. So they're closing off that possibility, and they could spend billions of dollars trying to recreate life in a lab, single-celled life. But the people of faith, from reading the Rancha book and just from having insight, know that, yes, God did kick off evolution of single-celled organisms. So right then and there, we know they're both correct there. God kicked off evolution. The Urantia book goes into the details of that, about the life carriers and so forth. God doesn't need to do all these tasks on his own. He creates beings that will be the ones that bring the life to the planet. Okay, anyways, let's go on. Faith, though not predicated on reason, is reasonable. Though independent of logic, it is nonetheless encouraged by sound logic. Faith cannot be nourished even by an ideal philosophy. Indeed, it is with science the very source of such a philosophy. So, as you can see, faith is dipping into this other aspect of reality called spirituality. So it's not a philosophy, which could be of the mind. It's the source of that philosophy. And the same with science would be the source of a philosophy as well. Faith, human religious insight, can be surely instructed only by revelation, can be surely elevated only by personal mortal experience with the spiritual adjuster presence of the God who is spirit. So this book is a revelation. And you can, in a way, verify that, elevate that by having spiritual experiences from within. True salvation is the technique of divine evolution of the mortal mind from matter identification through the realms of Morantia liaison to the high universe status of spiritual correlation. So Remember, Marancha Moda is this intervening. You can think, whenever you see that word, think intervening between material and spiritual. It's its own entire realm of existence, uh, stage or dimension of the universe that helps kind of synthesize the material and the spiritual. And as the material intuitive instinct precedes the appearance of reasoned knowledge in terrestrial evolution, so does the manifestation of spiritual intuitive insight presage the later appearance of Morancha and spirit reason and experience in the supernal program of celestial evolution, the business of transmuting the potentials of man, the temporal, into the actuality and divinity of man the eternal, a paradise finalite. So in other words, it's saying you have to choose to embark upon a faith walk to become spiritual in order to unfold the spiritual. You're not going to get it the other way around. You're not going to be able to do experiments and interview paradise finaliters and see if you want to do that uh, without first taking a spiritual step, right? If you're just a materialist, you're just going to end up in the graveyard. But I mean, you'll be resurrected based on the mercy and things like that, but you're not going to attain these eternal states here unless you decide that you want to be spiritual. Okay. But as ascending man reaches inward and paradiseward for the God experience, he will likewise be reaching outward and spaceward for an energy understanding of the material cosmos. You see how they're interrelated there? You're not just going for one or the other. You're finding this interrelation, and you're like, for instance, the beings that write this book have so much more of a profound understanding of materialism than our scientists do, and they reveal a little bit of it here and there, what they can. um, the progression of science is not limited to the terrestrial life of man. You see, there you're understanding like energy, I mean, understanding the master physical controllers and Morancha power supervisors and everything. His universe and super universe ascension experience will to no small degree be the study of energy transmutation and material metamorphosis. So people that enjoy science don't think that that's not going to be taking place in your eternal career. God is spirit. That is, but deity is unity, and the unity of deity is not only embraces the spiritual values of the universal Father and the eternal Son, but also is cognizant of the energy facts of the universal controller, the third person of deity, and the Isle of Paradise, which essentially is almost like the fourth aspect of deity, even though it's not God because it's a non-person, but it's the source of energy, or I mean the source of gravity, and it's a huge physical controller in the universe. While these two phases of universal reality are perfectly correlated in the mind relationships of the conjoint actor, and unified on the finite level in the emerging deity of the Supreme Being. Supreme Being is the God of time and space. Even though it's synthesized with the Trinity, it's an aspect of the Trinity, but it's the time-space correlation of that Trinity, which is absolute, beyond time and space. The union of the scientific attitude and the religious insight by the mediation of experiential philosophy, see, now we're seeing why philosophy is important, is part of man's long paradise ascension experience. You see, you don't want to throw philosophy out the window. That's what our religionists do a lot of the time, and our scientists do a lot of the time. It's that great mediator. The approximation of mathematics and the certainties of insight will always require the harmonizing function of mind logic, folks. That's why we don't say, oh, the scientists planted the, you know, bones in the La Brea tar pit so that they can disprove the Bible. They're in league with Satan. I mean, what kind of concoction? How far are your mental gymnastics going to go just so you can feel okay about paying $100,000 a year to the church and not feel like you're being ripped off, or you've been ripped off and have to face the fact 10 years later that you've been ripped off by this church for over $100,000 and say, oh shit, I didn't need to do that at all. A preacher up there saying, if you don't pay me $10,000, the devil's gonna get you. Let's handle these snakes. Um, and So, and if you face truth at that point, then you're going to, maybe you're afraid because you're going to have to say, oh no, I was such an idiot, I was such a fool. So you have to dig in, and every single time there's a new scientific discovery, you have to be this, weird person who's denying science. But remember, folks, that's fine if you remember, wise men or women live by what truth they can find today, wholly ready to call it a falsehood tomorrow. We don't look at our past selves. I was into, following various religious idols and things like that in my past. That was a fine stage for me. It's about growth and progression. Look back to those things. I wouldn't do that tomorrow, and I wouldn't knock anybody who was doing that. But I'm knocking their ideals of the Christian church. I'm not knocking the people that want it. If they're enjoying it and that sort of thing, then that's fine. But remember, if they're ready to wake up from it and realize that science is a reality, then they can feel welcome and free to do that in the spiritual community. Um, Always require the harmonizing function of mind logic and on all levels. When I knock Christianity, I'm knocking more the evil aspects of it, like this money aspect of it, this brainwashed type of ideal that they're doing in order to take advantage of people. If somebody likes to believe that and go to church and stuff like that, that's fine. I don't want to take that away from somebody. But I also want to sound the alarm for somebody who might be being turned into a victim on this planet in the name of religion. And they don't need that because God is within them. Harmonizing function of mind logic on all levels of experience, short of the maximum attainment of the supreme. Okay? Once you attain the supreme, I guess you really don't really need the approximate harmonize. Yeah, once you attain that, it's already harmonized. You don't have to do probably a philosophy at that point. You're just at such a level that. But logic can never succeed in harmonizing the findings of science and the insight of religion unless both the scientific and the religious aspects of a personality are truth dominated. Truth can mean, hey, we can't rule out the fact that God put single celled organisms on the planet. That's what Descartes did. Descartes didn't rule things out. And you know what he did? He discovered, I think, therefore I am. And also, a key component of Descartes' philosophy, Rene Descartes, one of the most famous philosophers, was God. Okay, but he came to that by not ruling things out. An incredibly scientific mind. I forget what he invented. Possibly the XY axis, possibly the prism. I forget. He invented a lot of scientific things. Sincerely desirous of following the truth wherever it may lead, regardless of the conclusions which it may reach, folks. Oh shit, I've been working on this paper for 20 years to say that we can create life in a lab. Oh no, but I might be open-minded. I'm going to be open-minded tomorrow and see what comes to me spiritually. Oh wow, I had a spiritual epiphany. It's time to burn the paper. And then, but the thing is if you really truly understand spirituality from the way that your Rancho book teaches, you realize nothing is lost or wasted. Those time periods where you were kind of, feeling around in the dark and going after things, they help build and, well, they help grow your character. And those findings will be transmuted and so forth, and they will help. So there's no grasping on to the dead past and trying to cling on to these dogmas, be they religious or philosophical. Logic is the technique of philosophy, its method of expression. Within the domain of true science, reason is always amenable to genuine logic, like but within the domain of true religion, faith is always logical from the basis of an inner viewpoint. See, that's why it can't be proven with a theorem, but it is logical once attained. Even though such faith may appear to be quite unfounded from the in-looking viewpoint of the scientific approach. See, and they can. That's the way the universe is set up, that a purely scientific person is going to take a tape measure up to you and say, I'm going to measure your spirituality now. Oh shit, I couldn't find anything. You must be an idiot and a liar. Well, but if they understood from within, which you can't measure, and it's supposed to be like that. They're never going to be able to make a scientific approach towards spirituality. Even all of this types of things, like Look at your, for instance, your Penrose. Your Penrose was a he's a brilliant mathematician. They're trying to make this link. There's this whole realm of science where they're trying to make this link with consciousness and spiritual. Well, he is not so spiritual, okay? But they're really involved in what consciousness is, where it is stored in the mind. Who's another one? Dr. Stuart Hameroff is another one. He's a good one to look up. He is a little bit more inclined towards the spiritual, and they kind of started to diverge a little bit because Stuart Hameroff is a little bit more spiritual, and Penrose, or I believe that's his name, uh, he thinks that's kind of wooish. But anyways, they're attempting to try to make a link, but they're going to have to realize too, no matter how close they get, no matter how much they understand about consciousness or the link, because remember, they are discrete realms of understanding. The mind and the spirit are separate, notwithstanding their intimate coordination. From outward looking within, the universe may appear to be material. From within looking out, the same universe appears to be wholly spiritual. Reason grows out of material awareness, faith out of spiritual awareness. But through the mediation of a philosophy strengthened by revelation. See, that's another aspect of this Urantia book that they're saying how important revelation is, just like a staple in the universe, not just on this planet, but on all of the different planets. It's a huge process, like baked into the fiber of the universe, that there's going to be revelations to planets because the humans can only get to a certain level if their guides and teachers didn't reveal things to them. Just like how if you were trying to do carpentry, you'd only get to a certain level. If you didn't, it'd take you so much longer, or maybe you'd never find those secrets at all if everybody had to reinvent everything. Logic may confirm both the inward and the outward view, thereby affecting the stabilization of both science and religion. Thus, through common contact with the logic of philosophy, may both science and religion become increasingly tolerant of each other, less and less skeptical. Okay? So it's this harmonizer that should be able to marry both of these things. What both developing science and religion need is more searching and fearless self criticism. And that's what we have as people who read the Urantia book, because of our truth is living and the past is dead. And that wise man philosophy, or woman living by the truth we can find today, wholly ready to call it falsehood tomorrow. A greater awareness of incompleteness and evolutionary status, right? Realizing that we're the lowest rung on the ladder here. So anything that we can try to get from a higher rung is going to help us. The teachers of both science and religion are often altogether too self-confident and dogmatic, right? If you knew where, another good analogy I heard is like a genius level mind on the very next um, phase of our spiritual progression is literally like a slug. You're Einstein, They say that the angels are mathematical geniuses, and they know like the numbers of hairs in your head, and that's just a crude example to say that they have a mathematical genius understanding. Science and religion can only be self-critical of their facts. The moment departure is made from the stage of facts, reason abdicates or else rapidly degenerates into a consort of false logic. The truth, you have to admit what you don't know, and that's how Descartes discovered God. He took everything off of his table of knowledge and say, well, I don't really know this. I could say I believe this. I could say this seems logical and plausible, just like when we read those things about how the angels are organizing their governments in various first parts of the books and so forth. Uh, it could say, that is a faith walk. I haven't personally sat in and experienced those, governmental organization of angels. I haven't sat in, but it all seems to fit. It all seems to fit. And then tomorrow, if I get a better presentation that doesn't fit, then I'm ready to grow from that. Okay. Or makes that not fit. And spiritual values can best be had through the ministry of the Spirit of truth. See, this is why when we read things like this, it kind of rings a chord to us, because we have a spirit of truth within us, which is an entity, and best be criticized by revelation. And when something is this replete, folks, it's this, you have to at a certain point say this really is a revelation. But revelation originates neither a science nor a religion. See, this isn't a religion. Its function is to coordinate both science and religion with the truth of reality. You can come up with your own religion based upon it. Always in the absence of revelation, or in the failure to accept or grasp it, has mortal man resorted to his futile gesture of metaphysics. Now, this is the critique of metaphysics. That would be like your Paramahansa Yogananda, some of the, well, let's continue on. That being the only human substitute for the revelation of truth or for the moda of Marancha personality. You have to come up with a metaphysics. And if you're trying to do it without revelation, or an inward revelation, which would be you hitting on the Marancha level, you can't hit on that Marancha level, though, if you don't have a faith. It's kind of like I said, it's that procedure. The science of the material world enables man to control, to some extent, dominate his physical environment. That's why Paramahansa Yogananda was an extremely advanced yogi, but they don't have a faith in God the Father in their religion, in Hinduism. So no matter how much meditation and that sort of thing that they do, they can still miss aspects of this this inner revelation, this auto revelation that happens within them, because of the fact that they're not approaching it from a faith-based understanding. So that's why when he comes out of his meditation, he's going to come up with metaphysical things, understandings about what is the nature of reality. And it's going to be maybe like, it's just man's attempt. That's all it is. It's a human substitute for it. It's just man growing and learning. The science of the material world enables man to control and to some extent dominate his physical environment. The religion of the spiritual experience is the source of the fraternity impulse, which enables men to live together in the complexities of the civilization of a scientific age. You see, that can help you learn how to do experiments. But geez, how are we going to not use a gun to shoot the guy in the head? Oh, geez, well, we got to go to our religion then. Metaphysics, but more certainly revelation, affords a common meeting ground for the discoveries of both science and religion, and makes possible the human attempt logically to correlate these separate but interdependent domains. See that? Separate but interdependent of thought into a well-balanced philosophy of scientific stability and religious certainty. So, they had to come up with something in their absence. So that's where metaphysics, and not all it's not saying that everything metaphysical is just complete. Like, for instance, they discovered where the endocrine system, the glands in your body, correlate with the chakras, just because they sat there and meditated for but way before that, man's science, medical science, discovered where those things were located. Nothing can be absolute in the mortal state. Nothing can be absolutely proved, folks. Science can't be absolutely proved, because at the end of the day, you could say, geez, well, how do you know that you're just not in a simulation? So how are you going to say that this is an absolute fact of the universe, that, the black hole exhibits this? Well, let's say, well, how do you know that that's just not a projection on a screen and blah, 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 right? You can never absolutely prove science. Never. You're only one person doing doing experiment. Even if every single other person do it, you could say, well, geez, how do you know that we're not just in the damn matrix? Okay, it can never be proved. And religion are predicated on assumptions, and same thing with your religion. On a Marancha level, the postulates of both science and religion are capable of partial proof by modal logic. So when you hit on that, you're having this like moda. That's what that moda is. It's Marancha. On the spiritual level of the maximum status, the need for finite proof gradually vanishes before the actual experience of and with reality. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. you're just living it. You're the living proof. But even then, there is much beyond the finite that remains unproved. It's still always a faith walk, even for the beings who write this book. All divisions of human thought are predicated on certain assumptions which are accepted, though unproved, by the constitutive reality sensitivity of the mind endowment of man. Science starts out on its vaunted, don't know what that means, career of reasoning by assuming the reality of three things: matter, motion, and life. Okay. Religion starts out with the assumption of the validity of three things: mind, spirit, and the universe, the supreme being. That's a good thing to note, folks. When people say, oh, what does the universe will for me and stuff like that, they're really talking about the supreme being here, the God of time and space. Science becomes the thought domain of mathematics, of the energy and material of time and space. Religion assumes to deal not only with the finite and temporal spirit, but also with the spirit of eternity and supremacy. Only through a long experience in moda can these two extremes of universe perception be made to yield analogous interpretations of origin, function, realities, relations, and destinies. You got to experience it. The maximum harmonization of the energy-spirit divergence is in the encirclement of the seven master spirits. The first unification thereof in the deity of the Supreme, the finality unity thereof in the infinity of the first source and center I am. So there's various levels, obviously, of man. I mean, we're climbing a ladder. We're climbing a ladder. So with that ladder comes various understandings of universal energies and so forth. Reason is the act of recognizing the conclusions of the consciousness. Here, let's look at what reason is. People say, what's reason? Let's see what the most supreme definition on the planet is of. Okay. Reason is the act of recognizing the conclusions of consciousness with regard to the experience in and with the physical world of energy and matter. Okay? That's something that, see, consciousness, that's why this is so important now in science, and rightfully so. Well, what's faith? Faith is the act of recognizing the validity of spiritual consciousness. You can't write it down, you just have to do it. Something which is incapable of other mortal proof. We always say that here. Logic is the synthetic truth-seeking progression of the unity of faith and reason. See, reason is the science. Logic is where you start to unify both of them, and it is founded on the constitutive mind endowments of mortal beings, the innate recognition of things, meanings, and values. See, we have even the fact that we have the ability to sort this out should be proof in and of itself of the existence of all of it. I mean, if you really sit there and think like, geez, the fact that there's a rock and all of the mathematical possibilities in the universe, the fact that I'm able to sit here and say, I see a rock, proves every single possible thing about spirituality, God, the perfection of the universe. There's mathematically impossible if you're just atoms colliding in space, because look at all those aspects of space where there is just absolute blankness. I don't know. It's philosophical. Again, there's no real proof. Look at. There's no real proof. I experience that inwardly when I say the fact, geez, how did I get so lucky in a mathematical universe of probabilities that I'm able to like float around and, have an experience and read this book and whatever. To me, it proves everything. Just the fact that you're having an experience. And that's how Descartes, I think, therefore I am, Okay, there is a real proof of spiritual reality in the presence of the thought adjuster, but the validity of this presence is not demonstrable to the external world, only to the one who thus experiences the indwelling of God, okay? The consciousness of the adjuster is based on the intellectual reception of truth, the supermind perception of goodness, and the personality motivation to love. So somebody would say, geez, a scientist could come up with the correct experiment, even if he was in a terrible state of mind. His yardstick is still going to measure that to be 2 feet. But this is saying you have to be minded towards these things in order to make the discoveries. Science discovers the material world, religion evaluates it, and philosophy endeavors to interpret its meanings while coordinating the scientific material viewpoint with the religious spiritual concept. But history is a realm in which science and religion may never fully agree. Okay, history is a weird kind of thing. We call it fact. We just have to agree that certain things are fact, like the Civil War, right? We call that fact, but we don't call it truth because from a religious standpoint, it's not beautiful and it's not good. It won't continue on. It's not, those types of things fall flat in the universe. That's why they're fact, but not truth. But we all have to agree on certain various facts. Truth is living, truth is beautiful, and it's good. So that's why history is a weird one. It may never fully agree. Holy shit. So this book, I mean, those were 2 pages here, folks. That's it. All right, then it gets into philosophy and religion, the essence of religion. I mean, look what we're dealing with here. I hope people enjoyed that. Growth of the Trinity concept. And remember, I like to zoom out here. This is just those 2 pages. Look at that's all we did in this. So you're really going in when you get into the Urantia book, and it's going to help change your life. All right, thanks for liking and subscribing. See you next time.